A 10-year-old boy walks into the city's most elite restaurant, not to beg, not to dine, but to submit a dish he cooked himself. His mom was too sick to finish the competition, so he took her place. What the head chef didn't expect. A simple meal that would stir childhood memories, challenge his pride, and lead him straight to the woman who taught her son how to cook, with love, fire, and laughter. The rain tapped lightly on the wide glass windows of La Merche, the most exclusive restaurant in the city. Inside, the kitchen bustled like a symphony, flames flaring, knives clattering, voices snapping back and forth in hurried rhythm. Everything was fast, everything was flawless, until the doors opened, and everything stopped. He was no more than 10 years old. Wet hair stuck to his forehead, and his oversized hoodie sagged around his small shoulders, soaked and darkened by the weather. He carried a paper bag in both hands like it was treasure. His shoes squeaked with each step across the marble floor as he made his way through the sleek corridor toward the hostess stand. "Excuse me," he said, voice soft but steady. "I need to see the head chef." The hostess blinked. "I am sorry, sweetheart. We do not allow guests in the kitchen." The boy held out the bag. "Please, this is very important. My mama, she could not cook today, so I did it." The words struck like lightning in a cloudless sky. In the kitchen, behind the swinging doors, the chef's brigade had just finished preparing a tasting menu for a prestigious culinary competition. The judges would arrive in less than an hour. Tension ran thick. Lucas Delacroix, the owner and head chef, paced near the pass. He was known for his brilliance, his perfectionism, and his short temper. Rumors said he once threw a plate out a second-story window because the garnish was crooked. That was the man the little boy was asking for. "I am sorry," the hostess said again. "We cannot," but a sous chef passing by overheard. She glanced at the bag, then at the boy's earnest eyes. Without a word, she pushed open the kitchen door. "Chef," she called out, unsure whether she would regret it. "There is someone asking to speak with you." Lucas turned sharply. "We are not accepting walk-ins. It is a child. He says he cooked something for the competition." Silence dropped like a blade. "A child?" Lucas strode to the doorway, wiped his hands, and stepped out. He looked down at the boy, frowning. "You?" The boy nodded, holding out the bag. "My mom is sick. She was supposed to submit a dish today. I made it instead. I followed her steps as best I could." Lucas's eyes narrowed. "This is not a joke." "No, sir." The kitchen was still. Every eye was watching. Lucas hesitated, then reached for the bag. Inside was a plastic container with something wrapped neatly in foil. The smell hit him first. Warm, familiar, strangely nostalgic. Without a word, he turned and walked back into the kitchen. The boy remained in the hallway, hands still clasped, heart pounding. He had no idea what he had just done. The day before the rain, their small apartment smelled like garlic and rosemary. Max stood on a chair by the stove, gripping a wooden spoon with both hands. He wore an oversized apron that read, "Chaos Coordinator," a leftover joke gift from his mom, Rachel. She was sitting nearby, curled up on the old sofa with a mug of tea and a scarf wrapped around her neck. "Stir slow, Max," she called hoarsely. "Let the flavors hug each other, not fight." Max furrowed his brow. "Hug, not fight. Got it." Rachel smiled, her voice weak but proud. "You have more kitchen sense than most line cooks I know." Max grinned and kept stirring, the wooden spoon circling the bubbling pot. He had grown up watching her move through the kitchen like it was a dance. Light steps, gentle hands, and laughter always woven into the steam. Even after working double shifts as a waitress, she found the energy to teach him how to dice onions, test the heat of oil, and balance flavor like music. They did not have much, but they had that. Their kitchen was small, but to Max, it felt like the whole world. Rachel had once dreamed of becoming a chef. She studied at a local culinary school for a year before life, bills, and a surprise pregnancy put everything on hold. But she never lost her love for cooking. She poured it into every meal for Max, turning their cramped kitchen into a kingdom of stories, spices, and soul. This week, she had been preparing for something special, a local cooking competition sponsored by the famous La Merche restaurant. The prize was a mentorship under Lucas Delacroix himself. Max had never seen his mom so nervous and excited at the same time. "It is just a dream," she had whispered one night, tucking him in. But dreams are what make the everyday feel magical. Now, that dream was slipping away. Rachel lay on the couch, her face pale and sweaty. The fever had hit hard. She could barely stand, let alone cook. Max sat beside her with a cool cloth, watching her breathe in slow, shallow patterns. "Mom," he said quietly. "What about the competition?" Rachel gave him a tired smile. "It is okay, baby. We will try next year. But your food, it was so good." She reached out and touched his cheek. "You are what is good, Max. Nothing else matters." But Max could not let it go. That night, after Rachel fell asleep, he sat at the small kitchen table with her recipe notebook open. The pages were stained, the handwriting slightly messy but full of love. He traced the steps of the dish she had planned: braised chicken and saffron cream with handmade rosemary flatbread. It sounded fancy, but to him, it was comfort. Home. He knew every step. He had watched her make it so many times he could close his eyes and see her do it. He bit his lip, looked at the clock, and whispered to himself, "I can do it." The next morning, he woke early. Rachel was still sleeping, her breathing raspy. Max crept into the kitchen and started prepping. Just like she taught him, he marinated the chicken, kneaded the dough with small hands that worked slowly but carefully. He even hummed to himself like she always did, whispering things like low flame, long love, and good food takes time, not panic. There were moments he nearly gave up. The cream split once, and he had to start over. He burned the first batch of flatbread, but he remembered Rachel's words: "Do not fear mistakes. Respect them. They are how flavor finds courage." By midday, the dish was done. He packed it carefully, wrapping the bread in a clean cloth and sealing the container tight. Then he stood at the door, heart pounding, looking down at his reflection in the doorknob. He did not know if they would laugh at him. He did not know if they would even let him in. But he knew one thing: his mom deserved to be seen. He left a note beside her pillow: "Went to deliver your dream. Be back soon. Love, Max." And with that, he stepped out into the cold. Inside the kitchen of La Merche, the air was thick with anticipation. Pans sizzled, timers beeped, and assistants hustled like shadows behind flames. This was not just a restaurant. It was a temple of precision. A place where even a misplaced sprig of thyme could trigger an outburst. Lucas Delacroix stood at the center of it all, tall, sharp-jawed, and dressed in a pristine white coat that seemed untouched by the chaos around him. He was the kind of man whose mere presence made sous chefs stand straighter. Every movement he made was exact, deliberate. His reputation was built on being unflinchingly honest and relentlessly demanding. When he was handed a container of food prepared by a child, his reaction was swift and cold. "Who thought this was worth my time?" he asked flatly, holding the container like it was a science experiment gone wrong. The kitchen froze. The sous chef who had delivered it took a small step back. He said his mother was too sick to cook, chef. He wanted to submit it for her. Lucas gave a low, humorless laugh. "We are not running a daycare. And we certainly do not accept pity dishes." He peeled back the foil anyway, more out of irritation than interest. Steam rose gently. A rich aroma followed, subtle saffron, creamy depth, the bite of rosemary baked into something that smelled almost hauntingly familiar. Still, he frowned. Even if it smells decent, it could be microwaved leftovers. For all we know, it was made by an adult pretending through a child. "He made it himself," the sous chef said carefully. I watched him say it. No fear in his voice. Lucas raised an eyebrow. Children also believe in Santa Claus. Their standards for truth are questionable. He turned away from the dish, as if that settled it. Get rid of it. But before the container could be taken away, another cook, one of the pastry chefs, had already taken a quiet spoonful. She blinked in surprise. "Chef," she said, barely louder than a whisper. "You need to taste this." Lucas sighed, but the note in her voice made him pause. He stepped back toward the counter, picked up a small spoon, and dipped it into the sauce. He tasted it. His jaw did not drop. He did not gasp or smile, but something shifted in his eyes. He stepped back, staring at the container. "It is balanced," he murmured. "Not just decent. This is real food." Another cook tried a bite. Then another. Soon, the room that had been rigid with silence started buzzing with low murmurs. Of surprise, handmade flatbread. Someone taught him well. Who uses saffron that sparingly and still gets that flavor? He browned the chicken first. That takes instinct. Lucas crossed his arms, his expression unreadable. "This cannot be from a child," he muttered. "Why not?" someone asked. "Because children do not know restraint. They do not know timing. They do not create like this." But as the words left his mouth, he realized how unsure he sounded. He turned to the sous chef. "Bring him in. I want to see him for myself." Minutes later, Max was standing in the middle of the kitchen like a mouse in a lion's den. Lucas approached slowly, studying him with the same intensity he used for judging Michelin-level platings. "What is your name?" "Max. And you made that dish?" "All of it." "Yes, sir." "No help?" Max shook his head. "My mom is sick. I just followed everything she taught me." Lucas folded his arms. "Why do you think it deserves to be here?" Max hesitated. "Because it is hers. Even if I made it, it is still hers." The room fell silent again. Lucas's eyes searched the boy's face, looking for a crack, a tell. But all he saw was sincerity and the faintest shake in his small hands, not from fear, but from standing too long in the cold. Lucas turned away, his voice low. "Take him out of the kitchen." Max's shoulders sagged. For a second, it felt like the dream had ended. But just before the door swung shut behind him, Lucas spoke again. "Wait." Max turned. Lucas did not face him. He only said, "Tell your mother I want to speak to her. In person." And then he walked away. That night, long after the kitchen had been scrubbed clean and the staff dismissed, Lucas remained. The restaurant was silent now, save for the low hum of the refrigeration units and the occasional creak of the pipes. The competition dishes had all been cleared away. Judges had come and gone. None of the plates impressed him enough to speak their names aloud. But one container still sat quietly on the edge of the stainless steel counter, Max's dish. Lucas stared at it from across the room, arms crossed, jaw tight. He had told himself he would throw it away, that it was foolish to entertain the idea. Yet it was still there, untouched. After the first bite that he walked over, slowly, and removed the lid again. The steam was gone now, but the scent lingered, soft, buttery warm. It was not just the aroma of food. It was the smell of home. Lucas picked up a fork. He took another bite, then another. He sat down, his posture shifted. The sharpness in his shoulders faded. His eyes softened, not because the food surprised him, it already had, but because it did something rarer. He remembered something for him. He was 9 years old again, sitting at a wobbly wooden table in a small kitchen lit by a single overhead bulb. His mother humming as she stirred a pan of chicken on the stove. The smell of saffron and cream floating through the cramped apartment. His father had already left by then. It was just the two of them. Lucas had always thought memory faded like mist. But this dish, it was like a map. Every bite led him somewhere. He had not realized he missed. He looked down at the flatbread. Imperfect edges, slightly uneven in shape, but golden, fragrant, and made with care. He broke a piece, dipped it in the sauce, and let it sit on his tongue, still warm. Still alive. He leaned back in his chair and exhaled, the weight of the moment pressing gently against his chest. What kind of boy made this? What kind of mother raised him to cook like that? Lucas was a man built on control. He did not trust emotion. In his world, feelings ruined timing, blurred the line between excellence and failure. But tonight, a dish made by a child he had never met had broken through that. Armored, he wiped his mouth with a napkin, stood, and looked out toward the dark windows. Something about that boy stayed with him. Not just the food, but the way he stood in the kitchen, small, shaking, yet completely unwilling to back down. He had defended his mother like a knight guarding a throne. Lucas turned off the last kitchen light and stood in the doorway for a moment longer. Tomorrow, he would find out who she was, not because he needed to settle a question of authenticity, but because he had tasted something he had not felt in years, honesty. And it was time to meet the person behind it. The next morning, Max was sitting by his mother's side, watching the rise and fall of her breath as she slept. A damp towel rested gently on her forehead. The apartment was quiet except for the ticking of the wall clock and the low rumble of buses outside the window. He had not told her what he had done. Not yet. He wanted to. He really did. But something about the way she looked, so fragile, so unlike her usual self, made him hesitate. What if he had made it worse by going behind her back? What if? A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. Max jumped. He crossed the room. Peeking through the curtain, a man in a dark wool coat stood in the hallway, hands clasped behind his back. He looked completely out of place among the chipped walls and narrow hallways. His posture was stiff, composed. His eyes, cold, precise. Max recognized him instantly. He opened the door only a crack. "Mr. Delacroix?" Lucas gave a short nod. Max stepped out, pulling the door shut behind him. "Is something wrong?" Max asked, already shrinking under the weight of the man's gaze. "I asked you to bring your mother. You did not." Max glanced down, at the ground. "She is still really sick. She could not even sit up this morning." Lucas's voice stayed even. "Then you should have told me. I thought maybe you would not believe me." "I do not believe in hiding," Lucas said. "Not in the kitchen. Not in life." Max swallowed hard. "I was not hiding. I was just trying to protect her." Lucas's eyes narrowed, not out of anger, but curiosity. "From what?" "From everything," Max said, voice tight. "From getting her hopes up. From being judged when she is too tired to defend herself. She has worked her whole life to be strong. I did not want her to feel small in front of someone like you." Lucas blinked. That sentence landed like a slap. Wrapped in truth, Max looked like he wanted to disappear. But he stood his ground. "I will tell her you came," he said, trying to close the door. Lucas placed a hand on the frame, stopping it gently. "No," he said. "I will wait." Max blinked. "Wait." "I will wait here," Lucas repeated, "until she is ready. I do not care if it is 10 minutes or 10 hours. I want to speak with the woman who raised the boy who cooked like that." Max stared at him, stunned. I thought you did not like kids." Lucas exhaled slowly, almost smiling. "Neither did I, until one made me taste my childhood again." There was a long pause. Max finally said, "Give me 5 minutes." He slipped back into the apartment. Rachel was still resting, but her eyes fluttered open as Max knelt beside her. "Hey," she whispered, voice hoarse. "Why do you look like you committed a federal crime?" Max grinned sheepishly. "I might have sort of entered your dish in the competition anyway." She blinked. "You what?" "And the head chef liked it. And he is here, in the hallway." She sat up, too quickly, then winced. "He is here? Right now? And he wants to meet you." Rachel stared at him for a long moment. Then, despite the fever, despite the aching joints, she let out a short laugh. "Well," she muttered, "no one ever said raising a kid with ambition would be easy." She stood slowly, leaning on Max's arm. "Help me not look like I died yesterday," she said. "But do not erase all the mess. If he is here to meet me, he is going to meet the real me." Max smiled, eyes wide with admiration. And Rachel, tired, sick, but still sharp, reached for her sense of humor like it was armor. "Let us go see what Mr. Michelin wants." Rachel stood in the doorway, leaning slightly on Max, wearing the most dignified version of a bathrobe she could manage. Her hair was pulled into a quick bun, and despite the flush of fever in her cheeks, her eyes were sharp and steady. Lucas turned. For a split second, he looked startled. Then his expression reset, unreadable again, neutral, controlled. "You must be Rachel," he said, voice calm. She gave a tired but amused smile. "I must be. Unless Max's culinary brilliance came from the neighbors." Lucas's brow lifted, slightly at the sarcasm, but he said nothing. Max looked between them nervously, unsure whether to disappear or referee. Rachel gestured to the inside of the apartment. "Would you like to come in? Or do all your meetings take place in narrow hallways?" Lucas hesitated and stepped inside. He took in the space, neat but small, humble but clean. There were spices on the windowsill, drawings on the fridge, and a worn copy of The Joy of Cooking on the table beside a toy lightsaber. Rachel sat carefully on the edge of the couch. Max hovered like a worried little assistant until she smiled and whispered, "Tea, my love. Distract yourself." He ran to the kitchen. Lucas remained standing, watching her. "So," Rachel said, folding her hands, "you came to tell me my son trespassed into your sacred kitchen and insulted your Michelin ego?" Lucas blinked. "No. I came to tell you your son cooked one of the most balanced, honest dishes I have tasted in 5 years." Rachel's smile faltered slightly. She was expecting battle, not praise. "Then why do you look like you want to fire someone?" Lucas exhaled. "Because I do not understand how he did it. That kind of flavor does not come from YouTube videos. It comes from someone." Rachel met his gaze. "I have been feeding him since he had teeth. He has been watching me since before he could walk. And he actually listens. unlike most adult line cooks I have trained. Lucas sat down in the chair across from her. You trained professionally? She shook her head. No. Culinary school. For 1 year. Then bills, life, and a very big surprise in the form of Max. But I kept cooking. For joy. For love. For survival. Food is what got us through. Lucas nodded slowly, absorbing each word. Rachel tilted her head. But why are you really here? I am not delusional enough to think one home-cooked meal changed your entire philosophy on fine dining. Lucas was quiet for a long time. When I tasted his dish, it brought something back. A memory of my mother's kitchen. A place I had buried under 10,000 tasting menus and perfect plating. I came here because I wanted to understand how a boy learned to cook like that. Rachel softened, visibly. He learned because I taught him that food is not just fuel. It is memory. It is safety. It is expression. And we had very little, so I taught him to respect every spoon, every flame, every moment. Lucas nodded again. The silence stretched, not uncomfortable, just full of things unspoken. Then Rachel smiled. You do not smile much, do you? Lucas blinked. What? That was not a joke. Just an observation. You have a good jawline. It would not hurt to let it soften now and then. Lucas stared at her. Then, unexpectedly, he laughed. It was short, unsure, almost like the sound surprised him. Max peeked from the kitchen, wide-eyed. Rachel winked at him. She is different, Lucas said finally. She is tired, she is recovering, and she still managed to roast you in your own emotional kitchen, Rachel replied. Lucas leaned forward slightly. I want to offer something. Not out of charity. Out of respect. I want to invite you both to the restaurant. One night. Just the two of you, in the kitchen. I will clear the floor. Let Max cook again. Let you cook with him. Rachel's brows lifted. Why? Lucas met her gaze directly. Because something about your food and your son needs to be seen. And maybe something about both of you reminds me of what I lost along the way. Rachel looked down for a moment, then back up. Just to be clear, there is no catch, no cameras, no viral marketing stunt, just food, just real. Rachel exhaled and nodded. All right, Mr. Michelin. One night. Lucas stood to leave. You will not regret it. I might, she said with a grin. But at least I will have fun watching you try to survive Max's helpful advice. As Lucas opened the door, Max stepped out of the kitchen. Are you taking my mom to work? He asked. Lucas turned to him. I am inviting you both. One night. Your menu. Max looked at his mother, who nodded. Then, I guess, Max said proudly. It is time for the world to meet the real chefs. 1 week later, the kitchen at La Merche looked nothing like it usually did. Gone were the brigade of chefs, the clockwork movement of synchronized cooks, and the tense silence between plating and perfection. Tonight, the space felt alive in a new way, less like a temple, more like a family kitchen preparing for something special. Lucas stood by the prep station, sleeves rolled up, watching as Max carefully peeled carrots with comically intense focus. Too much pressure? Lucas asked. Max shook his head. Nope. I am just making sure I do not mess up your super fancy knives. From across the room, Rachel called out. He is only pretending to be careful because you are watching. I heard that, Max replied. Without looking up, Rachel, dressed in a chef's coat 2 sizes too big and sleeves rolled up to her elbows, was mixing batter with one hand and flipping dough with the other. Her energy was brighter now, her smile back in full force. Tonight is not about elegance, she said, glancing over at Lucas. It is about flavor, family, and making people feel like they are being hugged through their mouths. Lucas raised an eyebrow. Is that your culinary philosophy? It is also my dating philosophy, she said with a wink. Lucas blinked. Max groaned. Mom. Rachel smirked. What? I am just saying. Lucas cleared his throat. Let us focus on the menu. They had settled on 3 dishes, Max's signature version of the saffron chicken with rosemary flatbread, Rachel's warm spiced lentil soup, and for dessert, what she called happy muffins filled with jam and sarcasm. The restaurant filled quietly with invited guests, staff, family, regulars who had no idea what to expect. The kitchen was a world of its own. Rachel hummed as she cooked, the same melody Max had heard all his life. Lucas found himself stopping mid-task just to listen. There was no tension, no pretense. Just people who cared about food and each other. When Max's flatbread hit the griddle and puffed just right, he gave a small celebratory fist pump. "Did you see that, chef?" he asked. Lucas nodded. "Perfect rise. Good heat control." Max beamed. "Told you I was not just lucky." As dishes began leaving the kitchen, one by one, Lucas peeked into the dining room. People were smiling. Some were even tearing up. The flavors, they were not extravagant or pretentious. They were honest. Like coming home after a hard day and finding your favorite meal waiting. Back in the kitchen, Rachel was plating muffins with a gentle grin. "You know, I have not seen Max this proud in a long time." Lucas looked at her. "He earned it. And so did you." She met his gaze for a second too long, then looked away, pretending to fuss with garnish. "You are not bad at this, you know," she said. "At cooking?" "No," she said. "At being human." Lucas laughed softly. "High praise from the woman who roasted me in her bathrobe." Rachel smiled by the end of the night. When the last plate was served and Max had fallen asleep in a chair by the window, Rachel and Lucas stood alone in the now quiet kitchen. "He is going to remember this forever," she said, brushing a crumb from Max's cheek. "So will I," Lucas replied. She looked at him again, a little more softly now. "Are you always like this?" "Like what?" "A little bit brilliant. A little bit damaged." He shrugged. "Aren't we all?" Rachel tilted her head. "Yeah, but not everyone cooks through it." Lucas smiled, and this time it reached his eyes. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the cafe windows of La Merche, soft and golden. Lucas sat at a small corner table, sipping plain black coffee. Across from him, Max balanced on his knees, holding a marker and doodling on a napkin. "I am designing the new menu cover," Max explained, tongue sticking out slightly as he focused. "It is called the Real Chef's Edition." Lucas leaned in. "Is that me wearing a muffin hat?" "Yes," Max said proudly. "Because even serious people need silly hats." From the back, Rachel called, "Max, let the man breathe. He is still recovering from the emotional trauma of seeing my spice shelf." Lucas chuckled. "Actually, I found it oddly inspiring." She walked over, apron tied casually, hair up in a messy bun, and sat down beside them. "Careful," she said. "You are starting to sound like someone who enjoys chaos." Lucas looked between them, this whirlwind mother and her determined son. Somehow, in the short time they had known each other, they had taken the sharp corners of his world and softened them. "I want to keep doing this," he said suddenly. Rachel raised an eyebrow. "Drawing muffin hats?" "No," he said, smiling. "Cooking with you. Sharing food that feels like home. Letting people taste something honest." She was quiet for a moment. Then, softly, "Are you asking me to be your partner, Chef Delacroix?" "In the kitchen," he said. "In the kitchen," she echoed, playful. "And maybe, eventually, in more than just that?" Lucas met her eyes. "I am not great at small talk," he said. "But I am learning that the best meals, and maybe the best people, come with a little mess." Rachel smiled. "I warned you about the muffin test." Max perked up. "Wait, what muffin test?" Rachel leaned in. "If he eats one of my experimental muffins without flinching, he is in." Lucas laughed. "Serve it up." She walked to the counter, returned with a blueberry muffin full of cinnamon and a suspicious green speck in the middle. He took a bite, chewed, paused. "It tastes like chaos," he said. "Exactly." Rachel grinned. Max clapped. "You passed." And, just like that, the cafe filled with laughter, the kind of laughter that only happens when hearts open wide enough to let new people in. Sometimes, all it takes is one meal to change a life, and one small chef to bring a family together. If this story touched your heart, we would love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell us, where in the world are you watching from? We read every single one. And if you believe in love, laughter, and stories that heal, do not forget to subscribe for more soul-stirring stories that stay with you long after the final bite.